Hi, this is Semih Boaz and I will make a brief explanation on Mosaic Regressor bootkit. A modular new malware has been discovered called Mosaic Regressor, aimed to espionage and critical data collection. The malware consists of downloaders and installers for command execution in the target system. It has been found that the UEFI firmware and above operating system persistence level has been reached. Malware is thought to be distributed through physical access to the target machines. Before giving details, let's explain some concepts. So what is bootkit? Bootkit is a type of rootkit that can access the master boot record. A rootkit is defined as a collection of software components that allows its users to access cross-border areas of a computer or a device. As a rootkit that can invade the master boot record, the bootkit can reach various malicious purposes as a dangerous type of malware. SPI stands for Serial Peripheral Interface. It is a simple serial protocol that can talk to a variety of devices, including serial flash devices. Flash memory is a type of non-volatile storage that is electrically erasable and rewritable that is responsible to load boot data. Command and Control Server is also known as CNC or C2, is a central server that sends commands and instructions to malware-infected devices such as ransomware or rootkits. Because of the commands sent by this server, multiple operations such as data stealing, DDoS attacks, data deletion, data encryption on a device can be performed. The Unified Extensible Firmware Interface has a much more advanced look than the old normal BIOS. It is a specification that defines a software interface between an operating system and platform firmware. In fact, at first glance we can feel as if an operating system is installed inside the motherboard and we are using it. The UEFI alone can be considered a true operating system. All memory installed in the system can be accessed through UEFI. It also needs a free space, just like an operating system. This free space is provided by the onboard flash memory on the motherboard. Now let's see how the attack works. The malware infecting the UEFI is considered a new version of the bootkit named Vector EDK, that is the cyber attack actor leaked in 2015 by hacking team. The attacker mostly gained access through a USB thumb drive that attached to the computer. This malware looks like a UEFI firmware image and it has manipulated components of the normal firmware. We can see affected components on the figure here. One of the manipulated components is SMM interface base, that is a hacking team driver component intended to deploy further bootkit components. NTFS is a driver written by hacking team that is used to manipulate the NTFS file system to allow file and directory operations on the disk. On the other hand, SMM reset is a UEFI application aimed to mark the infected firmware image. This is done by creating a variable named FTA to a hard-coded GUID. The application is derived from the original Vector EDK code base that is named resetFTA. The last manipulated component is SMM access sub, which is the main bootkit component to serve as a persistent dropper. After a callback execution of SMM interface base, this component writes a binary file named Intel update, and this binary will be executed when Windows is up and running. The malware consisting of additional downloaders to get and execute secondary components such as DLLs. It is used to create a second malware called Mosaic Regressor that operates within a modular framework aimed to espionage and data collection. These downloaders have different communication mechanisms like curl libraries, BITS transfer interface, WinHTTP API, POP3S, SMTPS, IMPS payloads transferred in an email message. Downloaders in the structure of this malicious software distributed to the operating system. It communicates with the CNC server to execute certain commands and propagate across the network. Then it sends the data captured as a result of cyber attack to the same CNC server. A CNC address thought to be linked to Chinese-backed cyber threat actors known as APT41 was also discovered examination of Mosaic Regressor malware. So who were the targets? According to Kaspersky researchers, there were several victims who has affected the Mosaic Regressor malware. Those victims included diplomatic entities and non-governmental organizations in Africa, Asia, and Europe. When security experts examined the firmware code, they are encountered unreadable Unicode symbols like 0x83 and 0xBA. Then experts used a brute force way to convert these symbols into readable format. Finally, they translated these symbols using CP936 format into full disk column and column symbols. These formats belong to simplified Chinese and Korean code pages. The attack described in this presentation shows how far an attacker can go to gain access on the victim's machine. It is very rare to see such an UEFI firmware attack on the real world. This attack is a very hard attack in terms of reaching victim's machine, but after firmware is placed into the machine, it is very hard to get rid of it due to its business logic. Firmware will be installed on the system and it will be written on the SPI flash storage that is soldered to computer's motherboard. Such a malware implementation is resistant to operating system reinstallation or replacement of the hard drive because of the working mechanism of SPI storage and since it is an independent component. It is a very dangerous attack since the target were diplomatic entities and some important non-governmental organizations. There is a high risk of leaking important information, and the stolen information will be published on the web or sold to malicious people or organizations. But when we research more about the attack, we can see that attackers had used mailboxes to collect feedback and data, which makes attackers trackable. If the attack was planned more than not to do such a mistake, it will be very dangerous and untraceable. A user can protect his or her computer from this kind of attack by keeping UEFI firmware up to date and download this firmware from trustable resources. And that brings us to the end. Thank you for your time and attention.